Good morning. Happy Tuesday to you. My name is Evan Smith. I'm the pastor at Second Presbyterian Church here in downtown Stanton, and I'm coming to you today for your daily Lenten devotional. Today we're looking at chapter 5 in John's Gospel, verses 1 through 9a. We're actually picking up right where we left off yesterday, so let's hear this reading. After this, there was a festival of the Jews, and Jesus went up to Jerusalem. Now in Jerusalem by the sheep gate there is a pool, called in Hebrew Bethesda, which has 5 porticos. In these lay many invalids, blind, lame, and paralyzed. One man was there who had been ill for 38 years. When Jesus saw him lying there and knew that he had been there a long time, he said to him, "Do you want to be made well?" The sick man answered, "Sir, I have no one to put me into the pool when the water is stirred up, and while I am making my way, someone else steps down ahead of me." Jesus said to him, "Stand up, take your mat, and walk." At once the man was made well, and he took up his mat and began to walk. What Jesus asked this man seems like such a puzzling thing to us in some ways. But it said that this man, he'd been sick, he'd been in this terrible condition for 38 years. I mean, that's almost my whole life. 38 years. And Jesus, knowing that he'd been sick for such a long time, actually begins this whole process by asking him a very simple question that does seem so strange, but he just says to him, "Do you want to be made well?" This seems like the type of question we can't believe that someone would ask. Like, if you're sick, if you're not well, then who would say, no, just leave me alone. I love laying here as a beggar all day long. And yet, there are times that people can become so ingrained in the identity of who they are by their sickness or the way that they're deficient in some way, that they actually, if they're really honest, may not want to be made well. I mean, I've read stories about people who could actually have hearing for the first time in their lives with these cochlear implants, and yet they choose to remain deaf. And to those of us with hearing, that might just seem unbelievable. But for them, they'd say, well, being deaf is part of my community, part of my identity. I don't know who I am if I'm not deaf. I read a story also about a guy who had his vision restored. Or actually, I think for him, it was given to him for the first time, and he actually didn't like seeing. He preferred being blind. So he kept his apartment tremendously dark and never went out because he was trying to go back to his old sickness rather than living in a healed state. And while to us that may sound crazy, there's a lot of ways that we ourselves choose to remain unwell rather than let Jesus make us well. How? Why? Because to be made well by our Savior would be to change. And sometimes we would rather live with the enemy of great and settle for good, which is good, and settle for that good rather than change. Because we fear change. We fear being rocked out of our complacency. Really, we fear that if we allow Jesus to make us well, that he comes into our life to such this great degree that we're going to realize we can't keep doing things the same way that we always have, that we're going to have to change, and that thought is scary. And so when Jesus comes to us and says, "Do you want to be made well?" there's this part of us that might actually say, "No. No, Jesus, I want just enough of you that when I die, I get to go to heaven. But I'm not looking for you to so transform my soul and my life now that I might be called to do something I don't want to do. That I might be called to actually let you be the God of my whole life and not just this one section that I give to you." And so I challenge you today in this time when we are all still having tons of time to think and to be at home, to ask God, is there any way, God, that I'm not letting you minister to me? Is there any way that I'm not letting you make me well because I've kept you at arm's length, because I'm afraid of what might happen if you do make me well. Because I'm afraid of how my life might change, or what I might have to give up, or what I might have to do if I truly let you make me well and let you be the God of my whole life. It's a hard question, and it's one I encourage you to faithfully come to God with today. And that is your word for today. I hope you enjoyed this. If you did, please click the like button, maybe even share it on your own page. Thanks a lot. Have a great day, and goodbye.